Okay, welcome everybody. Glad you can come out tonight. Excellent. My name is Mike McGuire. Hi. Awesome. Wow, thank you. I could feel the love. All right. I'm here this evening with my Composition 2 students and my good friend and colleague Mary Fafleece, Professor of History and Political Science, along with... Why didn't you guys give me that kind of love? right? Along with her students from her American National Government class. Yay, yay. Okay. Our students have put together a unique program for you tonight, a series of 5 related readers' theater pieces on the issue of poverty in America. They have worked together to compose scripts from existing texts ranging from literary prose and poetry to music lyrics and personal narrative to statistical data and political dialogue. Key issues include women and children in poverty, the working poor, and the socio-political structures that underpin these issues. 50 years ago, Lyndon B. Johnson declared an unconditional war on poverty. 20 years after that, American singer-songwriter Tracy Chapman sung about poor people rising up to take their share. She spoke of a revolution that she said sounds like a whisper. With over 48 million Americans living below the poverty line today, it's hard to believe things have gotten any better. Still, we must do the work. We must hear the voices of poverty and use our own for change, whether they be whispers or screams. Silence is not an option. I give you our Readers Theater program, Sounds Like a Whisper, in 5 parts.
If you had $1,310 per month for you and your child, do you think that would be sufficient to support yourself and that child? The number is the poverty line per month for one parent and their child. Everyone has their own answer to this question, but the majority of people would have to say no. The American dream has turned into day-to-day survival for certain families.
Many parents work 40 hours a week at a full-time job, and they struggle to pay the bills and put food on the table. This is called the working poor. Working poor is a problem that millions of Americans face every day.
Some of you may actually be facing this problem. Some of us have dealt with or witnessed poverty in some way. The literature introduces 3 real-life stories that show the effect of poverty and how having a job does not mean you're making enough for the bills. And these are our 3 sources: storiesofpoverty.org, theworkingpoor.org, and I Am the New Working Poor by Dennis Powers.
My parents divorced in 2005 and had joint custody of me. After the divorce, my dad had a train wreck of a remarriage for 5 years. My mom dated some but stayed single. She also decided to adopt a child. My younger sister was 3 years old when she came to live with us as a foster child, whom we adopted 2 years later. My mom is who I want to focus on. My mom has an associate's degree from our local community college and worked for a biopharmaceutical company for almost 20 years before being laid off in 2008, shortly after the recession began. By now, her income and benefits from a severance package had nearly run out. She got creative and decided to start her own business.
On December 23rd, 2013, 2 days before my 60th birthday, I swallowed a stomach full of pride and walked into the Department of Social Services to ask for help. It is something I never imagined I would do. I am ashamed to admit that I am one of those people who thought it would always be someone else, someone worse off who just didn't or couldn't work hard enough, who would need that type of assistance. I was wrong, because I am the new working poor. I worked steadily up through the ranks as a technician, engineer, and manager in small and mid-sized companies, and then I spent the 90s at a large corporation. I did well. I had no trouble refinancing my home for a lower interest rate. I paid my bills, and unlike my parents, I was able to save money for the future. I could go out for dinner when I wished and could indulge in my passion for the new home computers.
According to Wikipedia, the working poor are working people whose incomes fall below a given poverty line. I first came across this term in Japan in the mid-1990s and thought it was an accurate term back then, but I find it still rings true to me today. As a single 30-something male working a 36-hour office job, I earn just enough to cover the bills, rent, and taxes, but don't make enough to afford other special things in life. I earn just enough to pay my gas bills, but I don't earn enough to buy decent food. I earn just enough to pay my rent but could never afford luxuries like a car or vacation. I earn just enough to pay taxes, but if an extra expense appears, I struggle to make ends meet. I earn just enough to live, but not enough to feel alive.
The business she started is what her life passion is. She was very happy doing it. However, the start of Mom's business was not the end of our troubles. Her business did not earn enough money to keep the three of us, enough money for the three of us to live on. Bills piled up and eventually our house was foreclosed and we had to move. We came very close to being homeless because Mom operates her business out of our home. We had lots of trouble finding a home where there were not neighborhood restrictions that would prevent her from running her business. The home we found to move into was foreclosed on, poorly kept up, and a small double-wide trailer. Mom is still struggling every day, and bills keep piling up. The roof has been leaking for over a year now, and Mom has no money to fix or replace it. Both cars she owns are 10 years old and constantly have issues.
I never went anywhere on vacation, and I didn't buy expensive luxury goods, but even so, I believed that I was safely ensconced in the middle class. I was wrong. In March of 2002, 1 month after my health insurance ran out, and 3 days before I planned to pay off my mortgage early, I had a stroke. Over the next 2 years, I spent all my savings, including what I intended to use to pay off the mortgage, all my business capital, and a second mortgage to regain the use of the left side of my body. For the second time in my life, I needed to learn how to walk. Although I was financially trapped, I began rebuilding my business and my clients remained loyal. Then in 2009, the Great Recession decimated my client base and obliterated my retirement fund. Last summer, and the bank began foreclosure on my home of 30 years, forcing me to file Chapter 13 bankruptcy to save it.
I'd love to have a better job, but prospects where I live are non-existent. I tried going for some promotions to get a better pay, but my face never fits the company image, so I'm left scraping the barrel while the younger guys blow their inflated paychecks on stupid junk. I don't need to be rich, I don't want much in life, but the existence feels like a vicious circle that is impossible to escape. Every month I pay my bills just in time with nothing to spare. Something as basic as needing new shoes or having to pay repair on a pair of glasses has budgeted me for, and I've gone without heating in the past just to afford something to eat.
We have received food on more than one occasion from food pantries, and sometimes our only real income is a $700 check from my sister's adoption. We have the bare minimum in health care insurance plans. Because I am in college, I'm required to have some form of health insurance. We usually get by on just the bare minimum and absolute necessities, if we can manage everything. Many months we are deciding which bills to pay and which ones to put off, and how long we can put them off for. Being in a situation has impacted the way in which I want to direct my life. I am 20 years old and putting myself through college, and will openly admit that without financial aid and loans, I absolutely would not be here. I am a sociology major with a minor in communication studies. I picked these two because one day I would like to work in a social service job. I am interested in helping people, especially people who are in a situation similar to myself. I would love to one day be a counselor of some type or in another similar position. This is my story.
After 44 years of working full-time as a contributing middle-class citizen, I find myself embarrassed and ashamed that I now earn well below the poverty line and that I am close to losing everything. The thing is, I did everything right. I worked hard all my life, I saved when I could, I educated myself. I didn't live above my means, so after spending half of Monday at the Waterbury Department of Social Services, I started the new year with SNAP assistance and a state-issued debit card loaded for January with $189. I'm seeking energy assistance, and I hope to afford health insurance on the state's exchange. More than anything, however, I'm working to rebuild my business. I want my position back in the middle class and don't want my nieces and nephews to struggle like my parents did. If things don't improve, I may still lose my home and business, and then, at the age of 60, I'll have to figure out how to start over from scratch. I am the face of the new working poor in America, and I am not alone.
If I was on welfare, the government would pay for my bills, rent, and taxes. I'd have food stamps and health care. My pride prevents that. I like having a work ethic, but at the same time it frustrates me walking home in the rain to a one-bedroom apartment while my unemployed neighbors drive their government-donated cars to their rent-free four-bedroom houses.
And now for a call to action. Is there a clear-cut answer to end poverty and the struggle of the working poor? We decided that the answer is no. But there are definitely ways that we can make an impact. One is by finding these workers better paying jobs based off skills that they have and the willingness that they have to survive.
Another option is to give these workers government assistance. Is it okay for someone working 40 hours a week to make less money than those who do not work at all? Or how about them paying taxes toward government aid for people who choose not to work?
Final option would be to focus the nation's attention, increasing economic opportunities for low-income working families.
Okay, we're miking up the next group, so okay. But if you have any questions for our group that's just leaving the stage, we can take any questions while we get the next group prepared. Are there any? Oh, hold on, we got to get the mic over to you.
You guys did a great job. Those are very poignant stories. I was curious, what did you guys pick these stories? You went on there and just had to kind of pick the stories yourselves, and why did you pick that individual story? Were there other stories that you passed over, or do you mind talking about that for a second on the mic?
Yeah, hello? A lot of our stories were fairly similar. We kind of just wanted to pick out some stories that had some almost real-life situations and more personal level than just basic.
You did that. That's great. Nothing else to add? Oh, no. Okay. Thank you.
Any additional questions before we bring our next group up? They're just about ready. All right, one more mic. We're almost there.
I'm nervous. Huh? I'm nervous. I don't too. I don't want to do this. Attention Walmart shoppers, the time is now 9 o'clock and your Walmart Discount City is closing. Natalie's breath caught and she felt lightheaded. Please bring your final selections too. Something surged in her chest, something hot and painful. We would like to remind you of our store hours. Her heart raced, the beat irregular, heavy. We're open from 9. Her mouth felt sick and tasted of cold chili. And as always, thank you for shopping at Walmart. Being poor is real hard, honey, and nobody understands just how hard gets. Hell, nobody even cares. Stop talking to me like a rich white woman. Don't worry about it. I'll contact you when I got time.
A single mom is not someone to look down upon. Holding it down and keeping it together makes her strong. Playing mommy, daddy, doctor, teacher, and friend, and in your eyes it looks like her life came to an end. Remember that she didn't choose to face this situation alone, and she will do whatever she can for her family and home.
I've never seen a diamond in the flesh. When I first met Christy, early in my stay at Westside Community Center, I thought that she was a drug addict. She was sitting in the day shelter of WCC, perched in a chair near a radio that was always on too loud. But as Christy and I worked together and became closer than I typically became with clients, it seemed less likely that drugs were a major issue in her life. As with many clients who entered our program, Christy was scared, uncomfortable, and frustrated at finding herself in this position. When I met her, she was depressed. This depression showed in her anxious mannerisms, which could easily be mistaken.
In 2008, there were 54 unintended pregnancies for every 1,000 women aged from 15 to 44. In other words, about 5% of the women have an unintended pregnancy each year.
I cut my teeth on wedding rings in the movies. This performance is a collection of different pieces of writing, both fictional and non-fictional. All of these tragic personal stories have one thing in common: women in poverty. We will be performing excerpts from sources that verbally illustrate the testimonies of multiple women and their struggles with getting through their everyday lives, while including some important statistics to support those stories along the way. Most of us are blessed enough to have a supporting, loving family and not to have to struggle every day just to get by. The selected sources we will be performing include
Women in Poverty in 21st Century America by Paula Dale. Where the Heart Is by Billy Letts.
Homeless Mothers Face to Face with Women in Poverty by Deborah R. Connolly.
A Poem from My Heart about being a single mother by Blonde Ambition.
And Fresh from the GodMonster.org.
And the song Royals by Lord. We hope that you enjoy our Reader's Theater. And I'm not proud of my address. Christy's story was a more complex story. Christy's story, like the stories of other women that I have worked with, complicates and distorts welfare categories that may otherwise be applied to her. Over the next several months, Christy revealed pieces and chunks of her life to me. I offer some of those fragments here, allow some of the twists and turns of one woman's life to stand out a little more sharply. Christy was born in 1969, making her 26 when we met, exactly my age. She was born in Portland. Through her sister, she met a man from California, Tim. It was not long before Christy moved in with Tim in his home in California. The couple lived with Tim's parents, who were very strict about their not sleeping together prior to marriage. In spite of this rule, Christy found herself pregnant a couple months later. Christy's life in California was somewhat unfocused. She and Tim moved around a lot, sometimes living with his parents, sometimes living with a cousin of Tim's, girlfriend, Susie, and their 4 children in hotels and apartments.
We were all on welfare, you know. No one was working, none of them worked. His mom, they all drew disability.
Christy's story illustrates the need to challenge existing frameworks that surround homeless families.
In the 14 states and the District of Columbia, at least 70% of births resulting from the unintended pregnancies were paid for by the public programs. Of the 2 million publicly funded births, about 1.1 million is about 53% results from the unintended pregnancies.
I was bounced around a lot and even went missing for 3 months. They put me in a group home, but I was enraged and ended up in a mental hospital on medication. This happened twice. Then when I was 18, I split from the system for good, headed for Chicago, where my mother went after she gave me up. I got an STD in '95 and ended up in the hospital for 3 weeks with pelvic inflammatory disease, and I still owe on that hospital bill. In '03, I got another STD and went to Planned Parenthood. When I got scabies in '08, I went down to Chicago to get treatment. Sometimes I got to the MLK Free Clinic in Milwaukee, but I've sat there all day, and there's no guarantee you'll be seen. I think the treatment I've gotten is substandard. They misdiagnosed scabies, said it was an allergic reaction, and gave me Benadryl, which didn't work. I finally got the cream from a friend and took care of it myself. I've been alone a long time, and I'm pretty good at taking care of myself. And I'm pretty afraid of pills, because you never know what's in them, really. But Planned Parenthood is helpful. I get free condoms from the neighborhood van, and I'm getting old, and I think about having kids. I really want them. But I'm scared about it. I got nobody to take care of me but me. So if something goes wrong, I'm stuck all alone. That makes me worry about getting sick, especially with diabetes. It's a bad, bad disease. And sure, I drink too much, but in my shoes, who wouldn't?
The 16% of women at risk who do not practice contraception at all for a month or more during the year account for 52% of our unintended pregnancies.
She spends many nights crying, wondering where her next dollar will come from. But when the baby's awake, she has a smile on her face for their games and fun. She locks her feelings up down deep in her soul, and she prays that her pain is one her children will never know. Some days she isn't sure where her strength comes from, and she wonders how she will make it as a single mom. Just like any other woman, her heart desires the love of a man, and she promises herself she'll look for that love just as soon as she can. As time moves on and the day turns into night, she begins to question whether she is doing things right. She gets down on her knees and prays for strength to carry on, for she knows that her babies only have her to rely on. All of her own wants and needs are pushed to the side, and she takes care of her children with such great pride. Though she looks happy and she suffers more than you will ever know, but those are the feelings that she will never ever show. So before you go looking at her with shame and disgrace, do you really think you have what is needed to take her place? Could you give up your world at the drop of a dime? Put on a fake smile and pretend to be just fine? Would you give up time spent with family and friends to take care of sick babies for nights on end? Would you spend that last $20 on that special doll instead of going on shopping sprees with friends at the mall? I really don't think you have what it takes to put on her shoes and take her place. Don't judge her, but respect her for the sacrifices she's made, and give her encouragement as she marches through life's parade. This is a poem I wrote on my feelings about being a single mother. Maybe it will help those who don't understand where us single moms are coming from.
Unintended pregnancy rates are the highest among poor and low-income women aged from the 18 to 24, cohabiting women and minority women.
Navalee Nation, 17, 7 months pregnant, 37 pounds overweight, and superstitious about sevens, shifted uncomfortably in the seat of the old Plymouth and ran her hands down the curve of her belly. But she didn't have sevens on her mind as she twisted and squirmed, trying to compromise with the hateful pain pressing against her pelvis. She needed to stop again, but it was too soon to ask. They had just stopped once since Fort Smith, but already Navalee's bladder felt like a balloon. Willie Jack was a year older, 25 pounds lighter, and 4 inches shorter than Navalee. Oh look, there's a Walmart. Let's stop there. I thought you had to pee. They have Walmarts in bed. They have bathrooms in Walmarts. It won't be long, she told him as she climbed out of the car. She knew he was gone before she reached the door. She could see it all, see it as if she were watching a movie. She could see herself running, calling his name, the parking space empty, the Plymouth gone. He was going to California and had left her behind. Left her with her magazine dreams of old quilts and blue china and family pictures and gold frames. She wouldn't remember it all, even later. But she did remember someone wanting to call an ambulance, and she did remember saying she was all right, telling them her boyfriend had gone to get the car fixed and would pick her up later. And little by little, as they went to lunch, sneaked to smoke, stocked more shelves, they forgot about the pregnant girl on the bench by the door, sitting under a red, white, and blue banner that said, Made in America. Navalee was looking at baby clothes when the intercom clicked on. The voice sounded tiny and distant, like a bad connection. She choked back the sourness that burned at her throat, wheeled and ran toward the bathroom at the back of the store. There must be, she told herself, things she could do. She could try to find Mama Nell, but she didn't know Fred's last name. She could call Red, but she didn't think he'd send her the money to come back to Tellico Plains. He'd already hired another waitress. She didn't know how long she had been in the bathroom. She had been too weak to move, too sick to care. The building was dark and quiet. A weak light came from the front, but she knew the place was empty, knew she was alone. She moved soundlessly through the store, toward the light, and found her possessions by the bench where she'd left them. She gathered them up as if she were preparing to leave, as if she were going home. Then she began to wander, like people who have come from no place and have no place to go. The Navalee Nation, 17, 7 months pregnant, 37 pounds overweight, slipped off her thongs, and there in the middle of Walmart, she began to turn, faster and faster, spinning and whirling, free, waiting for her history to begin.
Traditional estimates understate the extent to which sexually active teens experience unintended pregnancies because they typically include all women, whether or not they are sexually active. While most older women are sexually active, many teens are not. The unintended pregnancy rate among only those teens who are sexually active is more than twice the rate among older women.
In this torn up town, no postcode envy.
We hope that these emotional and personal stories and statistics inspire you and open your eyes on the issue of women's poverty, as well as the struggle women go through with pregnancy. There are many things that you can all do to help make a difference in your community. We ask that you will all step up and do your part to help people meet their urgent needs. We came to the conclusion that the most effective way to do so is to join with others to create change. Find people that share the same concerns and have the drive to help the less fortunate. It is true that there is power in numbers, but that is only because each person does their own part, whether it is big or small.
Okay, so we're having just a little bit of a roster change here, but we're getting our next group mic'd up. Were there any questions for the group that just went? Would anybody like to ask a question to them? It's excellent, by the way. Very good. Thank you.
It's just the same kind of thing again. How did you guys choose this? And even your blocking, and did you take this from somewhere, or did you just go? Because I heard one of them was like the plot from the movie with Natalie Portman and what's the movie called again? Which is in the Walmart. Yeah, Where the Heart Is. Thank you. Yeah. Can you again, all of you, just talk about where you got your statistics and how you developed the story and all that?
Well, basically, what we did was we all agreed on women's in poverty, and after we all agreed on that, we took the subtopics out of that.
Just kidding, I got it.
We chose, we said, you will go get the statistics. I'll pick a poem, and young people try to pick a narrative, and we did our best to put it together.
I don't think so. We're going on right now. We don't even good. Huh?
Are you ready? Yeah. Okay, our next group's coming up.
Young man, your word is father.
I stood up straight, licked my lips, and began. Father, M-O-T-H-E-R, father.
Poverty is right here, just under our noses. Poverty is everywhere and affects us all.
Don't go getting the idea that poverty is equal opportunity. In 2012, 16% of all women were in poverty compared to 13% of men.
There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. In order to talk women in poverty, we must prepare to confront the issues concerning income inequality and single-parent households.
Using the spoken word poem Spelling Father by Marshall Davis Jones and the song Dear Mama by Tupac, we are able to get insight to the struggle mothers have. The fact that these people have achieved such success and feel the need to go back to thank and acknowledge their mothers says something in itself about the feats of low-income single mothers.
Most people have been introduced to income inequality before. Women make 77 cents to every dollar a man makes. The U.S. Census Bureau recorded the wages of men and women in poverty, and these numbers really illustrate the gap.
The common Mother Goose nursery read, "There was an old woman who lived in a shoe," demonstrates the reality of the poverty and a lack of everyday needs such as food and shelter.
The call to action is Let's Work by Mick Jagger. He calls people to wipe out the issue of poverty.
Last night, I had the most interesting dream.
You did? What was it about?
I was 6 years old in a national spelling bee.
A genius?
Complex words like duodenum,
Serendipity.
floxinoxynilipilification.
Up until the final round.
One word between me and victory.
It's a little text who suffer, children say, born into a single mother household are more likely to drop out of school, divorce, or to separate and be dependent on welfare, says a Casey study. Even if marriage ends, children that are born into married couple families are better off.
Young men, your word is father.
The crowd began to chatter amongst themselves, seemingly displeased at the simplicity of this final word. I searched for those eyes that say everything's going to be okay, just do it.
No love for my daddy, 'cause the coward wasn't there. He passed away, and I didn't cry, 'cause my anger wouldn't let me feel for a stranger. They say I'm wrong and that I'm heartless, but all along, I was looking for a father, and he was gone.
Young man, your word is father.
I stood up straight, licked my lips, and began. Father, M-O-T-H-E-R, father. The spell master looks at me, down at his flashcard, back up at me.
Sorry, but you are incorrect.
I don't understand. My father's sitting right out in the audience. Excuse me?
I am sorry, son, but you are incorrect.
Well then.
Incorrect? How can he be incorrect when he's never known any different?
When you are a part of the 26% of single mothers, you play both roles.
All is put into one mother, whether it be bringing the kids to after-school activities or acting as an alarm clock each morning.
Duties might be normally attributed to father have to be picked up by the mother in order to provide the same opportunities.
Well then, if you mean incorrect,
You can save your sorry apologies because you must mean incorrect as in within the parameters of being right.
let me explain something to you. 'Cause obviously, you ain't grow up where papas are rolling stones down the hills of women's backsides.
And when he's gone,
All he's left us was
alone.
82% of custodial parents are mothers. You might even be surprised to find out that most were single mothers when they got married and conceived their children.
And while some mothers might be young and it can be easy to get stuck on their age and let pride get the better of you.
We should, instead of making generalized assumptions about their finances and level of education, support these women who made the decision to become a mother.
Because being a parent is a choice.
Where minstrel men stroll around on bikes while fathers balance their menstrual 2 jobs, 2 kids, and a life on a unicycle. And it looks something like this, breastfeeding on one arm,
phone on the shoulder,
cooking with the other arm,
cleaning with one leg,
tying sneakers with their teeth.
And I could see you coming home work late. You're in a kitchen trying to fix us a hot plate.
You're just working with the scraps you were given, and Mama made miracles every Thanksgiving. But now you're on the road, and it got rough, and you're alone.
You're trying to raise 2 bad kids on your own.
Young fathers who make mistakes because we are not all perfect, but the one mistake they would never make is abandoning their seeds.
To be considered a parent, mother or father, is a choice. Will you sacrifice what you want to get them what they need? Can you dedicate yourself, your time, or whatever money to help your child achieve?
A popular response among critics of single mothers being called father by Marshall Davis Jones was to take up arms over the fact that he might be undermining some of those dedicated fathers out there.
You can't talk women's rights without a man's crocodile tears.
If single women made up only 18% of custodial parents and men held the majority and had begun to be praised as a mother as well by children, undermining women would be the least of their worries.
You might even hear it reported that to be a mother or father, you are choosing to nurture your child in a pursuit of their dreams instead of your own.
That sounds like the most common sense.
You see, fathers are master gardeners. They tend to every leaf, removing the weeds, placing us in the windows of opportunity so that we can lean towards the sun and never forget that sky is the limit.
Planting kisses on our cheeks, hugs on our backs, growing their love on us the best way they know how.
Like my father sacrificed owning nothing so that I may have everything.
My father walked a daily nightmare so that I may live out my dreams.
My father wanted me with blood, sweat, and tears so that I may be ripe for the season.
And I hope that one day I can be as great a father as she was for me.
And I appreciate how you raised me and all the extra love that you gave me.
You asked me to spell father, and where I come from, father is, always has been, and always will be spelled M-O-T-H-E-R.
So get your encyclopedias. Show me your flashcards.
Open your dictionary, because what Webster says means nothing around here. Around here, my father is sitting right there, and I love her.
There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children she did not know what to do. She gave them some broth without any bread, then wiped them all soundly and put them to bed.
Let's come together, man and woman.
A group of people have more presence in the room than an individual in a corner, but the group is worth a sum of its parts.
Be free, let's work, kill poverty.
In 2012, the 6,000 males in poverty made over $50,000, while the 16,000 women in poverty were earning $34,000. In order to help both women and children in poverty, the $16,000 difference needs to shrink.
In Illinois, the mean income deficit for families was $9,000. Still a hefty chunk of change, but through donations to food banks or even thrift stores, you can help alleviate how thin their money is stretched.
Small changes can make big differences.
Stop treating other women as your competition.
Don't waste your energy on making enemies. Stand with them against poverty and inequality.
Let's work, be proud, stand tall, and touch the clouds.
Anyone could be in poverty, so it's important to help other people. If it will happen to you, it is comforting to know that there are people around us who are willing to help.
Let's put together a task force to help us get people more involved in the fight against poverty. And let's start it here, right now, with our school, Moraine Valley.
Put it on social media or break out your soapbox.
No one plans on living in poverty, so setting up relief efforts should be top priority.
It could be anyone, maybe even you or you.
We chose this topic because being women, mothers, and children, it is our responsibility to share concerns with others. We live in times of equality, but where is it? We should take advantage of the fact that we can actually voice our opinions without any consequences.
Stop treating women as your competition. We saw example of unity in Together We Cope, where we witnessed a lot of volunteer women coming together for a great cause. Last month, nominees for variety of state officials were selected. Now it's a time to think critically about what we like in our candidates for next year's elections. You have a voice, use it.
And then we would like to leave you with another of Tupac's ideas. Since we all came from a woman, got our name from a woman, and our game from a woman, I wonder why we take from our women, why we rape our women. Do we hate our women? I think it's time we killed for our women, be real to our women, try to heal our women. Because if we don't, we'll have a race of babies that'll hate the ladies who make the babies. And since a man can't make one, he has no right to tell a woman when and where to create one.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to get ready for our next group. While we get ready for our next group, are there any questions for our performers who just finished? Any questions at all? Well, I will play the role of Professor Faflis then and ask you the question, how did you go about selecting your texts? You know, clearly you passed over some and you selected others, so could you say a word or two about that? My question was, how did you go about selecting your texts, and what drew you to the ones that you ended up picking?
I guess it was just the emotional response that we had to like the spoken word poem that made us pick that and kind of rework what sources we needed to support it.
So it was the one source that became kind of the anchor, and then others built around it. Is that accurate? Cool. Thank you.
say it if you, unless you want to. Is it on now? It is. It is.
Hello.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting.
Check two. Oh, yeah, yeah, I knew you're over here. Okay, so you are in Durban, right?
Yeah.
So, right next to the,
Christine?
right? So remember, we're this way until it's our turn.
Testing.
I'm sorry, Mike.
No? Too much? We're going? We're good? Excellent. Fantastic. Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. How are you guys doing today? Pretty good. Awesome. Pretty fantastic. I'd say so, at least, what we got for you here is a little thing that we call the dueling senators. We got two senators from Illinois, Dick Durbin and Mark Kirk, fighting to the death. Oh, man, more or less. On some topics about poverty and everything related to the poor. So we're just going to get started in it. We're going to be starting here with unemployment relief. According to the Congressional Budget Office, Senate Bill 1845 would extend the Emergency Unemployment Compensation, the EUC, program for 3 months through March 31st, 2014. The EUC program allows qualified states to provide up to 47 additional weeks of federally funded unemployment compensation to people who have exhausted their regular unemployment benefits. The total expected increase in this deficit would be $6,414 million over 2014 to 2023. Here's what our dueling senators have to say about the issue.
On January 1st, 1.3 million Americans got a notice that they were not going to receive any more unemployment benefits checks. These are people out of work, they're through no fault of their own, who are required, under law, to be actively pursuing additional employment and regularly reporting to the government. For that, they receive an average unemployment benefits of $300 a week. $300 a week is not a generous amount in this day and age.
Illinois has one of the highest unemployment rates in the country, and it has been a priority of mine to find a financially responsible and common sense way to extend unemployment benefits for those in need of them.
The average person unemployed in America takes 38 weeks to find a job. However, we are cutting off unemployment benefits at 27 weeks. Losing a job is bad enough. Making it worse by cutting off unemployment checks is unacceptable.
This new legislation seeks to strengthen the U.S. economy while providing vulnerable job seekers and their families with a vital lifeline as they continue to look for work. The proposal is fully paid off for using a combination of offsets that include extending pension smoothing.
So here's the double standard. The double standard says that we are helping unemployed Americans. It's a deficit problem. But if we are giving tax breaks to the wealthiest people in America, it's not a deficit problem. That kind of double standard is fundamentally unfair. When it comes to unemployed Americans who lost their jobs at no fault of their own, Americans literally face with living in their cars. The Republicans tell us, sorry, we can't help. The deficit just requires us to say no to unemployed Americans. But when it comes to the wealthy Americans who are living comfortably, who can take a tax cut and buy a new car, the Republicans say that it's all right. We can give those tax cuts to the wealthy. It doesn't hurt the deficit. It makes no sense.
Extending unemployment insurance for the thousands of Illinoisans seeking relief has been a long-standing priority of mine. I am pleased that this bipartisan, fully paid-for compromise passed the Senate this evening. I urge the House of Representatives to swiftly pass the legislation. I yield the floor.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, how did they vote? Well, Dick Durbin voted yay.
Yay.
And Mark Kirk voted nay.
Nay.
Next, we'll talk about student loans. The Bipartisan Student Loan Certainty Act requires that for each academic year, all newly issued student loans be set to the U.S. Treasury 10-year borrowing rate plus 1.8% for subsidized and unsubsidized undergraduate Stafford loans. plus 3.4% for graduate Stafford loans, and plus 4.4% for plus loans. The interest rate would be fixed over the life of the loan, and the cap on interest rates for consolidated loans would remain at 8.25%. The Congressional Budget Office has determined the legislation would reduce the deficit by $1 billion over 10 years. According to the website govtrack.us, it requires institutions of higher education to provide student borrowers of Title IV loans, or Title IV loans, excuse me, prior to or at the time of their departure from school, with information regarding 1, their options for loan consolidation, 2, their income-based repayment plan, including information about capped monthly payments and loan forgiveness under the plans, and 3, direct consolidation loans. What do our dueling senators have to say about student loans? I, Mark Kirk, support the Manchin-Berg compromise today because it permanently addresses interest rate changes and returns confidence for the 21.9 million Americans borrowing that are expected to take out Stafford loans and PLUS loans this year. Currently, 64% of Illinois college students graduate with debt, 26,000 on average. I hope this long-term fix becomes law and relieves the burden on Illinois students.
Student loan debt has tripled over the last decade. When student loan debt far outpacing the rise in starting salaries, many borrowers find it that despite their best effort, they are unable to make their monthly payments. And when lenders refuse to work with them on replacement plan, they begin a downward spiral that is difficult to turn around. These borrowers and their families should not have to face the burden of additional costs because they cannot resolve errors quickly or gain access to programs meant to help them. Student Loan Borrower Bill of Rights will ensure that all borrowers will have access to basic rights and protections.
Number one thing is to up credentials to stay in school. Like, for example, I voted us to lower the cost for student loans and to increase the amount of Pell Grants. I don't think that we should adopt legislation that the Congress has moved forward to have complete government takeover of all student loans. This eliminates options that were very much needed for students.
When we voted to stop interest rates on federal student loans from doubling, we promised to address the underlying causes of skyrocketing higher education costs and the resulting unsustainable student debt in America. Over the last 6 months, our group of senators has been working together on a legislative agenda to encourage reform to help students and their families. Students should not have to sign their lives away to pay for their education. I yield the floor.
And how did they vote? Well, Mark Kirk, the Republican, voted yay.
Yay.
And Dick Durbin, the Democrat, also voted yay.
Yay.
Next, we're going to be talking about for-profit colleges. According to the National Conference of State Legislators, for-profit colleges and universities, unlike their public counterparts, are managed and governed by private organizations and corporations. During the past 2 decades, enrollment at for-profit institutions increased 225%. For-profit institutions often provide flexible scheduling with year-round enrollment, online options, small class size, and convenient locations, which particularly attract working adults, part-time students, and students with children. This growth has also raised concerns, as both at the state and federal level, about the quality of education these institutions offer. The amount of money in scholarships and loan they receive, the tactics they use to attract students, and the success of their graduates in finding jobs. Critics for-profit institutions argue that many schools and programs leave students with large amounts of debt. What do our senators have to say about this issue?
There are serious problems in higher education, particularly with some schools in the for-profit sector.
For the United States, for-profit colleges account for a disproportionate share of the students who have trouble paying back their loans. They enroll about 12% of our college students, yet account for almost half of all student loan debts.
The need to address these problems does not warrant the bias and unprofessional conduct we have witnessed in the past 4 hearings. It is unacceptable and uncharacteristic of the way this committee or institution has historically conducted business.
For many years, for-profit schools were allowed to operate one step ahead of the law. As the number of investigations increase, however, we are starting to turn the corner. It is important that oversight agencies are effectively working together to hold these schools accountable to taxpayers who often subsidize up to 90% of their own operations, and to students who ultimately are the victims of their schemes. I yield the floor.
And how did they vote on this issue? They haven't. They just like to talk about it a lot. Next, we're going to discuss homeless veterans. According to the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, based on a count on January 9th in 2012, there are 62,619 veterans who are homeless. There are many reasons veterans can become homeless, including poverty, lack of support from family or friends, substance abuse, or mental health challenges that they may develop or worsen as a result of trauma they experience while serving. What do our dueling senators have to say about this issue?
It is a national disgrace that veterans constitute such a large share of Illinois' homeless population.
In February 2014, Illinois had the 5th highest number of unemployed veterans in the nation. After serving our country, our nation's servicemen and women looking for work should not face an additional barrier because of Obamacare. I commend Representative Davis for his work in the House and urge the Senate to swiftly pass the Hire More Heroes Act.
A possibility might turn to foreclosed homes into opportunities for training and employment for veterans, maybe even ultimately a residence that they can live in.
I worry that the aging Danville, Illinois Veterans Affairs campus has been falling behind the times and needs more funding for physical updates. I fully support investing several $millions into developing the Danville campus, housing and services for veterans who are homeless or have mental health issues. That's a high priority for me and one I think I can get done. I yield the floor. And how did they vote? Oh, what a surprise. Once again, they have not. They just like to talk about it a lot. Next, we're going to talk about the Affordable Health Care Act. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the Patent Protection and Affordable Care Act was passed by Congress and then signed into law by President Barack Obama on March 23, 2010. According to the esteemed Wikipedia, the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, was enacted with the goals of increasing the quality and affordability of health insurance, lowering the uninsured rates by expanding public and private insurance coverage, and reducing the cost of health care for individuals and the government. It introduced a number of mechanisms, including mandates, subsidies, and insurance exchanges, meant to increase coverage and affordability. The law also requires insurance companies to cover all applicants with new minimum standards and offer the same rates regardless of pre-existing conditions or sex. On June 28, 2012, the Supreme Court rendered a final decision to uphold the health care law. How do our dueling senators feel about this issue?
I rise today in support of the amendment to repeal the health care law. We made a mistake last year in passing this law, and a large majority of American people know it. In the face of the largest debt in our history, it was the height of folly to create a new spending program offering subsidized health care to 30 million Americans. It is a promise we cannot afford to keep, and one that our lenders may force us to retract.
What Republican Senator Mitch McConnell is basically calling for is the repeal of Obamacare. What the Republicans are calling for is to repeal, for example, that provision in Obamacare which says that health insurance companies cannot discriminate against people with pre-existing conditions. If you happen to be in a family with a child who has diabetes, it may be impossible for you to buy health insurance under the old law. Under Obamacare, your family cannot be discriminated against. The Republicans want to eliminate that provision of Obamacare when they call for the abolishment of that program.
I stand with the majority of Americans in opposing Obamacare, which is why I voted against it 36 times.
36 times.
I support the House-passed measure that defunds Obamacare without increasing federal spending by a dime while preventing a government shutdown.
Secondly, when they defund and eliminate Obamacare, they are going to change that provision which guarantees there will be no limits on health insurance bankruptcy covered. Who knows what tomorrow's diagnosis will bring, what bills it will bring our family. But some health insurance policies have a limit on what they pay. When that limit is reached, people face bankruptcy and worse. Obamacare stops this from happening. The Republicans want to repeal that.
We are also listening to the views of the American people. A recent Gallup poll from 2013 showed that a majority of Americans disapprove of the Affordable Care Act. The same survey revealed that every one person who believed they would be better off under the Affordable Care Act, 2 believed they would be worse off. Opposition to your health care law, Mr. President, is growing, and it will continue to grow as more Americans realize that the law is built upon broken promises and result in higher health care costs and more taxes.
Obamacare also says that for a young son or daughter fresh out of college who's looking for a job and has not yet found one, they can stay on the family health insurance plan until age 26. The Republicans want to repeal that, leaving more and more young people, millions across America, vulnerable without protection of health insurance.
Given the widely held belief by the American people that the Affordable Health Care Act will not fulfill its promises and will result in higher costs to American families, we implore you to listen to the American people. This law is unworkable and harmful to the economy and to the American families, and your actions to delay the employer mandate are an acknowledgement of this fact. While your recent action provides temporary relief for some, we believe that all Americans deserve permanent relief from this onerous law so that we can adopt common sense reforms that will actually lower costs and that Americans support.
Finally, they want to repeal the insurance exchanges. Today, every member of Congress who uses health insurance available to us as U.S. senators and congressmen is part of the federal employees' health benefits program. Each year, senators, Republicans and Democrats, have an opportunity under an insurance exchange to pick the plan best for their families. That privilege is something we appreciate and want to make available to everyone across America. That is what Obamacare does. The Republicans want to repeal it. Republican senators want to keep using the insurance exchange for their families and their benefits. They do not want to extend it to our families across America. That is what repeal of Obamacare would do. I yield the floor.
And how did they vote? Senator Dick Durbin actually voted yay in favor of the
Yay.
Affordable Health Care Act.
Yay.
And Senator Mark Kirk voted nay.
Nay.
Yay.
We all hope you have enjoyed our dueling senator segment and would now like to yield the floor to you, the audience, for questions, comments, and concerns.
Any questions? He has a question.
I liked your presentation a lot. Why do you think that they can easily not discuss an option on when talking about the subsidies of schools, rather than easily come to an agreement for affordable health care? I mean,
So why were they not able to come to?
yeah, why were they not able to come to an agreement, and also not able to come to an agreement on subsidizing schools and rather than businesses?
Okay. So can I restate that? Do you mind? Tell me if I'm getting this correctly. Are you asking why is the government willing to subsidize companies more and not schools? Is that what you were asking, or is it something else? Is that, any of you have any thoughts about that?
Every politician is bought and paid for by a company.
Yes.
You still have your microphone on? Say it in the
Because pretty much every politician is bought and paid for by some sort of corporation these days.
Anybody else have any thoughts about that? Did you notice a big difference in their positions? Or not really? Or maybe you weren't able to figure out which one? Because there wasn't a huge amount of difference on some of their issues. They actually, we kind of, in doing this, we sort of came to realize that we were calling this a love story by the end between Mark Kirk and Dick Durbin, because they actually get along really well. and it's you kind of almost can't really figure out who's the Democrat and who's the Republican, because Mark Kirk is in an area where he's got to generally be pretty far to the center, because he can't be too far to the right because he's serving in a state that's pretty blue as of the last 20 some years of elections. So they actually tend to be really close to one another on a lot of issues. The only issue that we saw the biggest, starkest difference was the Health Care Act. Yeah. So on the rest of the stuff, like the for-profit colleges, the student loans, which is a reason that we chose that for a particular reason, because it affects all of you in this room. Your student loans, I don't know if you guys caught the highest cap on interest rates.
Yeah, they're trying to screw us out of our money, needless to say.
8% is pretty high for student loans, so hopefully you'll never have to pay that rate if you're in college. Any other questions?
Don't be afraid.
Now that you're up there, it's not that bad up there, is it?
Not at all. I could stand up here all day. I got some jokes for you guys if you want any.
Well done,
Okay, we have our final group coming up, so. Everyone's doing such a great job. No. And I had the opportunity to see many of the groups, obviously, in practice, and I have to say the improvements have been amazing. So you guys are doing so well. So it's hard. Yeah, absolutely.
What do you get when one has to accept a new reality? A reality that involves not being able to pay the bills or to eat dinner every night. What you get is a constant battle both mentally and physically that seems never ending.
For many working Americans, the American dream of prosperity and financial security often goes unrealized. Instead, they are forced to face a constant struggle to make ends meet.
Somehow, just barely getting by has become the new normal for hardworking individuals who work the normal 9 to 5 and have to survive off the minimum living wage.
Life for them has become a journey through both despair and optimism, and for these Americans, we ask the question, what has happened to the American dream?
Today, we would like to present to you On the Edge of a Dream, Poverty and the Working American, a Reader's Theater script provided by American Dream, The Story of David, song lyrics, The Rains.
Nickel and Dimed on Not Getting By in America, author Barbara Unreich.
No Shame in My Game, The Working Poor in the Inner City, author Catherine S. Newman.
One New York City family struggled to survive on a fast food salary, transcript PBS NewsHour.
Two American Families, transcript PBS Frontline.
A Working Man's Wage, song lyrics by Tracy Adkins.
The Working Poor, Invisible in America, author David Shipler.
And The Working Poor by Carla Dorman.
We're raised to believe that each generation can and will do better than the last. But is that really true?
A house, a good job, that's supposed to be the American dream.
How does anyone live on the wages available to the unskilled?
I followed my American dream. to a life of depression and poverty, a story that many of you don't know.
Why should I get up? Nobody's ever going to hire me because look at the way I'm dressed. Look at the fact I never finished high school. Look at the fact I'm black, I'm brown, I'm yellow, and I grew up in the trailer.
A politician's promise can make you feel like a fool. But when they get power, they're the first to break the golden rule. Climb that mountain, reach the sky, hanging on for a good laugh for that piece of American pie. Hey, nothing's easy, nothing's for free. In the world of dog eat dog, oh people, that's the poor man's dream.
This is my story. Don't you see? This could be every man. All from the choices we made not long ago. Why we made these choices, no one else does.
There's a lot of people in the same boat as us.
When I got laid off, they wanted me to go on welfare, but I couldn't stand in that line. I just said, not me. This is not me. They want to give me food. I say, this ain't me. I don't want no food stamps. I say I got my strengths, my health. I will find me a job.
And I've seen that same man come home from the mill, pull 40 hours for a $100 bill. I've watched him struggle and I've watched him age, raising a family on a working man's wage. I grew up on a working man's wage, blood, sweat, and tears on every dollar he made. For the little he earned, there was so much he gave, and I hope I am worthy of a working man's wage.
There's so much in this city, it's always hiring. It may not be what you want, it may not be the pay you want, but you will always get a job. If you can work at Burger Barn all week and come home tired and have to deal with the kids and all of that, and be happy with $125 a week, so can you.
You've got to run out of this country to go somewhere to make some money? That's crazy. And we're supposed to be the richest country?
And I felt like a sense of failure. I've always been able to get back on my feet. I've always found a way to the money to fix it, but I couldn't fix it anymore.
Right now, we're just going through a hard time, and I'm basically just trying to buy a little time so we can get on our feet again, you know, so we can get caught up. I would think that this is just going to be a temporary thing, not a permanent thing, and I really don't want to lose my house.
It really bothers us that we have to depend on other people. Just want to get up and do what I have to do. Just get in the car and go grocery shopping and have a normal life again.
Do you think you'll ever be financially secure?
The way the economy is going, no. I don't think anybody's really going to be financially secure, truthfully.
You know, every job I had, I worked 7 years. Okay, the place closes down. You work somewhere else for another 5 years. They lay you off. They shut down. All the years I've been working, I could have had retired by now.
And we'll all
just
work
together
until we collapse. Say it's a job. You're making money, right? Don't care what nobody have to say, you know. If they don't like it, too bad. They sitting on the corner doing what they are doing. You got to get to work making money, you know. Don't bother with what anybody has to say about it.
Do you think I like living like this, not knowing where my next meal will come from, not knowing if I'll be able to get out when the next disaster comes, or wondering what will happen if I get sick and can't work? In order to live, I have to work. Too bad my paycheck isn't paying me. It's a struggle to pay the bills. It's a struggle to keep a roof over my head or find something to eat. It's a struggle to find someone who gives a damn. Mostly, it's a struggle to survive. It's a battle I am determined to win despite the odds stacked against me, and I wish you all would understand that I'm not America's dirty little secret. I'm one of the working poor.
I followed my American dream. I followed my American dream.
If problems are interlocking, then so must solutions be. A job alone is not enough. Medical insurance alone is not enough. Good housing alone is not enough. Reliable transportation, careful family budgeting, effective parenting, effective schooling are not enough when each is achieved from isolation from the rest. There is no single variable that can be altered to help working people more away from the edge of poverty. Only where the full array of factors is attached can America fulfill its promise.
Climb that mountain, reach the sky.
I followed my American dream. I followed my American dream. I followed my American dream. This story is a mere representation of the millions of individuals working towards the promise of a prosperous future.
Their stories often go unnoticed and untold as they work through layoffs, unemployment, and underemployment, yet their spirits are undeterred as they learn to forge ahead toward the dream.
The truth is, this story is about all of us. The growth of poverty among the working people in the country is nearly becoming a reality of the majority. It affects one, it affects us all.
Could you imagine that in one moment, having what seems to be a stable career and a place to call home, only to have that sense of security drift away with an unforeseen layoff notice and a home foreclosure?
Can you envision yourself working 40 hours a week, supporting a family, all on a minimum wage?
If you can only imagine, you've become conscious to the sobering facts. Becoming aware is the first and vital step in the solution to this problem. If you take a look around, the face of ordinary people working through poverty can be a friend.
A classmate?
A coworker.
Or a family member.
We would like to urge you all to be the voice for that person and to stand by their side during the time of need. Help them to realize once and for all the American dream. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions?
Good time to ask your questions. They're all wearing their mics.
Hold on. I was just going to ask you a question. I was just kidding. Where did you guys get your sources from? What made you decide to use those sources for your Readers Theater?
It was actually easy to find a lot of sources because this is a common problem. You have a lot of people who are working, and a lot of times they're not making a lot of money, and they're wondering where their paycheck is going. And a lot of the materials, we built upon the resources we had in our reading materials in the course. So it was real easy to find extra material that related to the working poor in this country.
Interesting. Thank you.
To add on to that, we also want to incorporate people's pride and how hard it is sometimes for you to accept the fact that you have to go into poverty, and that's sometimes get in the way. Like people, like we said, how he's always had a good job and stuff like that, but it's hard to accept the reality of your situation sometimes.
Yeah, and oftentimes people don't realize that it is possible that we all could find ourselves in that same situation, because you could be working very well one year, and then a lot of people have found themselves jobless. So you could have had a year where you were working 5 years straight, and then all of a sudden your company shuts down, and now you have to resort to other resources like welfare, and you may have had certain attitudes about those programs until you really needed them yourself. So.
Any other questions? Excellent. Thank you so much, everybody.